Yep.
All right. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Rick Hernandez, and I want to talk to you today about a few things you may want to consider when starting a vegetable farm. Things I want to talk to you about are the purpose, your plan, your product, people, and your land. Okay. So let's take purpose first, for example. Um, Ask yourself, why do you want to become a farmer? Is it because of the concern that you have for the environment? Uh, you want to address local food issues, dissatisfaction with your current job. I mean, whatever it may be. I mean, hold on to that because it may turn out to be the backbone to your success. But at the same time, also ask yourself some real questions. I mean, some hard questions. That are going to help you. Are you prepared to take this job on? This job requires long hours, weekends, long early mornings, late nights. They'll kind of slowly creep into your vacation, your holidays, your birthdays. So and if you're a small grower and you're just a beginner, the reason you're doing this for is probably for seasonal earnings. So are you going to keep this? Are you going to keep your current job, or do you have to take on another job to help out with with your new farm expenses? Um, it has to think about your health. I mean, taking on a new job, and taking on or holding on to your existing jobs, you got to be somewhat physically fit. So if you're what about if you get sick? Are you ready to take on? How are you going to deal with that setback? What about if it sets you back a week? What about if it sets you back 2 months? Or what about if it's worse? Do you have a would you have that would you have the would you be able to bounce back with some good with determination? um, it can be um, it can be a long road before you start seeing any profits, or but if you have the patience, if you have the drive to take on the steep learning curve, you know I say map it. um, what I mean by map it, make a plan. So this plan, what is it going to do for you? In this plan, you should write down, you should record anything and everything that you think you might face, from your soils, when to plant, what your fertility program is going to look like, your plant program, your pest, your disease. What are those programs going to look like? What when your harvest dates are, when you're going to harvest, and what are you going to what are you going to sell your product for? Uh, and are you going to sell it enough, to the point where you'll be able to make a profit? Um, Equipment, it should be laid out as to what kind of equipment you're going to need. Do you need new, in your plan? Can you take on new equipment, or do you have to use old equipment or used equipment? And if you have to, I mean, whatever the case may be, I mean, who's going to fix it? Is this you? Can you fix it? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have the resources to fix it? Or do you have to outsource it? And if you have to outsource this, are you covered? Have you talked to your insurance agent to make sure that anybody who comes on site for any on-site visits or any on-site activities onto your that you're covered? Labor, what kind of labor? Where are you going to get your labor from? If you're going to be you're going to be a commercial outfit, you're going to be somewhat sizable. Where's your labor going to be coming from? Are you going to use government agencies? So what would you have to provide for them? Housing, uh, transportation. Uh, what about if they're just coming in? I mean, or just driving in? What do you have to provide? Do you have to provide training, personal protective equipment? That your plan should lay all that out. Okay. Um, Emergencies. What about if an emergency happens? How are you? How are you going to deal with it? Is it, again, are you going to be out for a week? Are you going to be out for, 2 months, or is it going to be worse? Do you have a business succession plan, in case you don't come back? Um, Agriculture sees its fair share of bad years. This year alone, at the beginning, just to begin with, in my area, we saw 3 different freezing events. I had growers scrambling for products so they can continue doing business. They were looking for product within the state as well as without the state. So that may be something that your plan that should be noted on your plan. How will you distribute your finances? Do you have children? Do you have children who drive, who are in school and drive? Are you paying for are you helping them pay for their transportation? Are you helping them pay for their insurance, tuition, books, mortgages? I mean, do you have a mortgage? Do you have two? Your rent? Are you renting the land that you're working, or is it yours? Also consider your funds, your retirement fund, your college fund, your personal savings. Your plan should lay out. It should be laid out so you can continue to contribute to them. You do not want them to turn out as a source of money that you're going to be able to, that you'll have the ability to manipulate and transfer over to your business account, so your business could, or so your new business endeavor can continue running. So your plan should lay out the product. If you believe in this product, if you believe in it, lay it out in your plan and describe exactly how your product or products are gonna address all these different issues. Okay. So, but also now while you're doing that, take into consideration the different the markets that you're thinking of selling. Go out there, look at prices, do price comparison. What are your competitors selling the product for? But also, what are you growing your product for? What is it costing you to grow your product? And when you're by the time you're finished growing, harvesting, and taking it to market, can you sell it for a profit? So, and if you can't sell it for a product, if you can't sell it there at your markets, what other plans do you have? Where else can you sell your product? Do you have to go elsewhere, markets that are a little bit farther away? Do you turn to, do you have to go to markets that are a little bit farther away? And if you do, how are you going to get your product there? Do you have the people that need to drive it there? Do you have the truck that needs to, or do you need a truck that's that has a refrigerated box so you can transport your product? Or can you just get away with an ice chest with some ice? Do you turn to on-site sales? And if you do turn on to on-site sales, are you familiar, or are you caught up? Are you certified? Are you licensed with all the different food safety regulations that you need to be aware of? Are you certified? If you're going to be processing foods at your place, do you have a kitchen that's certified? Are you going to be treating your crops with pesticides, fungicides? Do you need to be licensed? Are you certified? Are you licensed? What do you need? Do you need a business license? Do you have it? Are you covered in that respect? So know what the requirements are, not only locally, but state and federally as well. People. Who's going to be your who's going to be your business team? Is it you, your wife? Is it going to be your kids? Are they going to be available? Is it going to be your children? And are they going to be available when you're planting, when you're harvesting, when you need a market? Or would you have to reach out to extended family or beyond that? And if you do, one of the things you may want to consider is making sure that you write it down and make it legal. That way there's no confusion as to who's playing what role and what yours and his responsibilities are. The other thing you may want to consider is also is your or drawing up a separation agreement. Um, Separation agreements, I mean, nobody really wants to talk about them. If nobody wants to think about disassembling their business, but in all reality, there's no better time to put together a separation agreement uh, uh, when when everybody's has good when everybody has good communication between one another. It's probably the best time. Okay, so neighbors, get to know your neighbors. Um, be the first one to go out and introduce yourself if you can. Get to know them. I mean, for all we know is that one person or your neighbor, your immediate neighbor may be the person who was farming the land that you're looking at, and he may be a wealth of knowledge for you. So your community. What about your community? Get to know them as well. I mean, are you in a suburban area? Because that's where most of your markets are, because you're thinking of selling on site, or are you rural? And do you share a driveway with your neighbor? Are your neighbors and is your community still going to be supportive of you when your business grows and you start creating this weekday weekend traffic because of the on-site sales or activities that you have? When trucks start coming in to deliver materials so you can process your goods or market your goods, or when trucks come in and start delivering fungicide, pesticides, or even manures, are they still going to be accepting of you? Did you just turn their quiet suburban area into a into a traffic area? And are they going to be happy with that? Are they going to be accepting of that? If you're sharing that driveway with your neighbor, is he going to be accepting of all that traffic that you just created, that's passing, that's creating a lot of dust for him? So think about all the different impacts that not just your family, but also your neighbors were going to have. Okay? Land. How can think about if you're in the market for buying land, think about the different things that the land already has for you. I mean, does it have a water source? Think about take into consideration the management style that you're going to take on. For example, if you're going to seed directly into the ground, and you want to use overhead sprinkler irrigation, is that that pond, is that adequate? Is that going to be sufficient water for you to irrigate and operate your overhead irrigation? Rain. When is rain there? Or is rain going to be supplemental for your irrigation? But when does it get there? So kind of keep track of that as well. Is it going to rain when you're planting, when you're harvesting? Do you have to harvest your crops right before the rain, because they're not going to hold up? And if so, and if you do have to harvest them before they rain or before the rains hit you, what can you do? Did you lose your crop, or can you still further process your product? So try to find out what kind of crops, what kind of animals were raised on there. If it was crops, I mean, it might have been the same crops that you're looking at. If it was animals, I mean, what were they spraying? If they had pastures. So look at the soil. Are the soils going to be productive? Try to find out the history of pesticide use, because if pesticides used, especially your pyridines, and if there is residue, how is that going to affect the crop that you want to grow? Okay. Look at your exposures. Look at the sun. Look at the shade. Look at the microclimates. How will they play a role in your production? How are they going to affect you? Are they going to let you grow? Or are they not? Are they not going to let you grow your product that you want to grow? So take that into consideration. Frost dates, really important to know. What are your frost dates? Well, your frost date range in the spring and in the fall. I mean, how early can you get out there? And if you're going to transplant, how early can you get out there and transplant? Or if you're going to direct seed, is that going to give you sufficient time to do the crop that you want? And if you want to incorporate a cover crop, is that going to be sufficient time? Is it going to affect your management practices? So be aware, know your frost date and know how they're going to affect your crop. As you persevere through the years, you'll do a lot of recording. You should, and if not, you should be doing a lot of recording, a lot of record taking. I mean, this way you will find out what works for you and what doesn't. I mean, if you're looking for nurseries, you'll find out which ones are reputable. If you're looking for transplants, you'll know who has good transplant, who has better transplants. If you're looking for seed, can they get your seed? Disease plants, disease-resistant varieties. I mean, if you know that your land was suffered from bacterial wilt or fusarium wilt or some other kind of disease, look at getting disease-resistant varieties. It'll save you. It's a little headache that you'll save, but overall, you'll save on a big headache. Spacing, plant spacing. Look at the label. The label is going to tell you exactly what to do. Somebody already did the legwork for us. I mean, all we have to do is just basically follow the recipe and provide the plant what it needs. It's there for us. Okay. The use of mulches and straw, great practice. I mean, they'll prevent weeds from growing, but in addition, they'll also keep soil from splashing onto your plants, which could lead to disease. Be diligent about removing pests, whether it's a weed, a diseased plant, or a pest. If you see it in there, don't tell somebody else. Or if you need to tell somebody, let them know. Or but if you can't ID it, or if you don't know if it is a pest for certain, ID it. Especially if it's an insect, it might be beneficial. But if it is a pest, remove it. Don't wait for somebody else to remove it. Have a crop rotation program. There's in some instances, some growers will basically grow what they want, what they're going after, and or their main product. But nice practice to do is think about growing a cover crop. Cover crops are fantastic, or a grain, a cool season grain. They fertilize your fields, and also they may help you fight disease and insects as well. Sanitation of tools. Again, if you know that one of your fields, one of your plots has been subjected to disease, and you need to use tools in there, some of your tools. Well, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it could be a plow, it could be a harrow, it could be your shoes as well. I mean, think about anything that's carrying soil out of there, out of that diseased area. Sanitize it. Okay. Give your plant the help that it needs, whether it's a raised bed because it likes to have dry feet, whether it's a trellis to keep the plant's arms off the ground and keep them dry and allow as much sunlight and air to go through them. Give them the help that they need. This is your product, and this is a product that's going to help you become successful. Okay. So never stop assessing your production approach. It's a daily thing. It could be a weekly thing, monthly thing, but in all reality, you should never really stop, right? For example, is it a good fit for your farmland capabilities? When you started this endeavor, are you still producing the same crop? Did you need to change because your market's switched? I mean, is it still applicable to your land? Your financial needs. I mean, some cases you have to you will have to distribute it in different amounts or different areas, whether it's marketing, whether it's new equipment, personnel, training, whatever it may be. Sometimes you'll have to decide, and decisions are not easy. I mean, do you put the extra money that you have into marketing to sell your product, or do you get that piece of equipment that's going to make it easier and cut back on your labor? Market outlets, same difference. You always want to keep an eye on them. Product you may start out with may be good at the beginning, but middle of the season or towards the end of the season, I mean, is the market flooded? Do you need to change it up? Do you need to readdress your whole approach? I mean, just keep an eye on those. With as you go and as you continue to do your farming, your knowledge, your skill will definitely grow, and it's the only thing that's going to do is going to help you make some really good decisions. All right, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Sorry I was late. Is my mic working?
I'm sorry, I could barely hear you.
How about now? Is that better?
I'm I'm still a little, say it one more time.
How about now?
Yes, that's a lot better. I'm not hearing your question. Sarah, do you hear the question by any chance?
If you want to type it in, that would be perfect. I could hear you. So if you want to say it, if you want to talk, that's fine. If you just want to type it in, that's fine too. Oh, how you sanitize your tools.
Oh, okay. Well, sanitation, now this is going to be basically a program that you're going to have to develop. All right. Depends on what you want to use, whether it's heat, whether it's just soap and water, alcohol, but realize what the different chemicals are, how they're going to affect your tools, whether it's shears. I mean, if you're using shears, for example, hand shears, hand pruners, to trim off a little bit of your disease, some fusarium wilt off your tomato plant. Do you want to, one of the things you may want to consider, or one of the things you may consider is alcohol. But is alcohol going to affect the metal? Pine salt. Pine salt is another option. Is it going to affect it? Possibly, maybe not. So depending on the tools that you have, depending on how big they are, that's kind of really going to depend on what you want to implement. Something small. I mean, what I use, I like to use alcohol for my hand pruners. So the ratio that you use may be a little bit different. I usually look like I go from a 1 to a 5% concentration. It just depends what disease is out there and how quickly I want to control it. So depending on your tool, depending on the size of the tool, and depending on the program that you want to implement, that's what's going to help you decide how you're going to approach that. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. I cannot hear, and I am so sorry. I do apologize. My volume is about 100%.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
I do have another question if Charlotte doesn't have any question. I am curious about tracking costs for things like crops, where it seems like there are a lot of different pathways or expenditures over the course of a long period of time that all kind of have to be calculated in together for a harvest of unknown size when you set out, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, but again, that's where you, what I'd have to say is I would probably start concentrating on what it's going to cost you to produce your product first and foremost.
okay.
All right. Because that's really what, once you get that, once you get those numbers, then you can look at the different markets that
Sure.
you want, that you're thinking of attending. And then you look at the markets, compare prices, and see if you are able to sell your product while making a profit at those markets. Because if you can't, then where else can you sell it? Or do you have to further process it?
Right.
So, I mean, you want to make a profit, bottom line, right?
Yeah. Do you count so the scale that I'm working at, most of the costs would be in labor coming from me. I'm not paying anyone else to do labor. So should I put a monetary value on an hour of my time and calculate it that way?
Any grower, any farm owner that I've always known, always pays themselves something.
Right.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, you have to, that's your time. You have to take that into account. That is part of your cost.
Yeah.
So you have to take that into account. Yes, sir.
So in the comments, I threw a link to some NC State enterprise budgets. So if you were looking at just getting a beginning budget to help you get started, they have some really good sample budgets that you can go in and customize to your own farm that will help you at least get some sort of idea of how to get started. And then as you go through your growing season or seasons, then it'll help you to figure that out too.
Awesome. That's really cool. Thank you. I previously created a farm plan, but I got kind of stumped when it came time to do the financial calculations and forecasts and stuff. So
and a lot of those are going to go right back to you as well. I mean,
right.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of, I mean, again, it just depends on what kind of equipment you want. I mean, you want new, used equipment,
Yeah.
you want help, or is this going to be a family run business? So,
Right.
I mean, it's just going to depend on your inputs. So yeah, your costs are going to definitely be, are the big players there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Going once, going twice. All right, well, I will put up a quick poll. I will stop recording.